the drone that our army uses is manufactured in this country, but the company is part owned by Israel.
So the significance could be large.
Yes, it could.
How much does Israel actually rely on us for arms? What would a suspension actually be? How would it be felt?
I suspect, in terms of in any way damaging their capability, very little. Our arms sales to Israel, as far as I can gather, they're assault rifles and some explosives, but I'm afraid it's the other way around. We're more reliant on Israel for arms than they are reliant on us.
Does it make any difference what kind of figures we're talking about, though, when actually it's a principle at stake?
No, it doesn't. Not if you're looking at it as a moral question. I can see where the practical views of the Conservative Member of Parliament is coming from. It isn't simple, because it's not just the weapons that we rely on, and you have to remember that our own armed forces stockpiles of military machinery and ammunition have been hollowed out by our support for Ukraine, but it's the bits. The Israeli arms industry makes everything from optics to radars to missiles and missile parts that go into a lot of the kit that we use. So I think if they decided that we were trying to damage their interests, they could do a great deal worse to us by damaging ours. But I
Okay,
think
and sorry, Chris, would that then follow through in terms of perhaps the arms that we were sending to Ukraine?
it could possibly, but we're probably struggling to supply as much as we would like to right now. It sends a moral message to Israel, which I think is important and should be taken into consideration. It's all very well. I've often said before, it's all very well occupying the moral high ground, but you're an easy target yourself if you do that. However, this latest attack is, even for me, and I'm very sympathetic to Israel. I've been there and worked there. I think they're going too far now.
In your opinion, is Israel in breach of our laws, the laws that we impose on ourselves about granting export licenses?
I don't think so. I know that they supply weapons, drones, and the likes to some people that we would think are possibly questionable, but I don't think they're in breach of the laws that we would impose, and it wouldn't be anything to do with us anyway.
Yeah. With your long view and experience, Chris, I mean, this isn't an isolated situation in history. So are there any comparisons that are valid and worth making at the moment that would inform the position that we are currently in?
I think that as we look more carefully at the conduct of the Israeli Defense Forces in Gaza, we're going to find things that are more and more reprehensible. As I've said, I've been looking at this for a while now, and I've been helping people who do investigations into some of the activities of Israel, both past and present. And for example, the WCK attack, I think, breaches all the laws of armed conflict that we would apply to ourselves.
Do you think that there is an obvious reluctance on the part of British politicians to actually really very openly discuss what parts we take from Israel that play a very vital role in our military? I know that you know quite a lot about how drones are manufactured. I don't think I've heard very much specific conversation about some of those parts coming from Israel and the fact that, our military capacity is diminished if Israel were to stop sending those parts, and if that was in response to us doing something towards them?
Yes, yes, it could. I completely understand why uh, politicians who have to be diplomatic and have to look at a much, much wider perspective than I ever do, why they'd be coy about being too hard over on Israel. And do remember, Israel didn't start it. Um, so they're they're just doing awful things at the moment. And I think if sooner or later somebody is going to have to draw a line in the sand. On your question about the parts and what effect it could have on us, you have to remember that the drone that our army uses is manufactured in this country, but the company is part owned by Israel.
So the significance could be large.
Yeah, yeah, yes, it could. We have obvious sympathies with Israel, its right to exist, the fact that it's surrounded by enemies, the fact that all kinds of state and non-state actors interfere with its right to exist. But that doesn't mean that they should act outside international humanitarian law. And I'm afraid, much as we might not like it, we do need to take some sort of stance and at least try to influence Israel to behave better.
Yeah. Would you say that it's absolutely gone beyond the time at which anybody should be being coy?
But probably because all that's happening in Gaza at the moment is Israel is, by its activities, recruiting thousands and thousands of future people who will hate it enough to attack it.
Chris, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. That's former British Army Major Chris Lincoln Jones. And Chris has a book out at the moment called Dr. Moore's Automaton, if you'd like to know more about the world that he lives in.